All right, welcome to another episode of The Ultimate Hunters. I'm here with Kade Tremblay, and we're gonna introduce him. What got you into hunting, why you like hunting, and so what do you do for work?
So I am a farmer rancher, number one. Number two, I own and operate a brick and mortar storefront, kind of a mom and pop firearm and sporting goods store in Hill City, Kansas. I've been here for almost 5 years. The time of putting South Fork Armory together, I just turned 21. At the time, I was on the farm full time. We're a cow-calf operation.
Your family does a lot of that.
Yeah, family farm.
How much do they farm?
So we farm. Man, I hate to even guess, but just a shot in the dark. Probably somewhere around 10,000 acres.
Wow.
Farm ground, and we run about 650 to 700 cows most of the time, mama cows.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot.
It's busy.
Yeah. So that's what you grew up doing.
Yeah.
Like you grew up farming, helping them.
Yep. I've got two older brothers, so we've always been engaged in the farm.
Yeah.
Being a family farm, that's part of it. So in doing that, we were all very fortunate. Being involved in the farm, it gave us the opportunities to kind of start the groundwork for
what you wanted to do.
Our hunting opportunities as well.
Yeah.
And I credit a lot of what I learned as far as work ethic goes, back to what my folks taught me on the farm too. So kind of the school of hard knocks in a way. So I graduated from Hill City in 2016, and I went to work. I didn't go to school. I bought 100 cows at the time, and that's what I did full time until 2020. And actually, what kind of got me into my gun shop, all through high school. Of course, I played football. I was always the biggest kid on the field, and when I graduated high school, I weighed 300 pounds. So
you lost some weight.
Yeah, so that's what I did. So playing football is when I kind of started figuring out I had some health issues. My joints, I've got some sort of degenerative. I can't even tell you. I don't even know what the word is for it, but I've had both shoulders operated on multiple times, and in the end of 2019, November, December of 2019, I actually started having some troubles with my hips. So I kind of decided, it's a hard decision, especially to kind of step away from the family farm a little bit, but all at the same time still be involved. I decided I better find something I can do the rest of my life without tearing my body up every day.
Yeah.
And it was a perfect fit. I mean, I don't work a day in my life. I love what I do all the time, every day. Yeah. I enjoy every single minute of it. So it was kind of a leap, but it was a good one.
Yeah. So you're talking to me about your brother. He kind of introduced you or took you with to hunt. Yeah.
So my oldest brother, I'm the youngest of three boys. My oldest brother's he's about 8 years older than me. Him being in high school, probably like my earliest memories of hunting. My middle brother, he's a year older than me, so we did a lot of hunting with my oldest brother, and he kind of started us, down the road of upland bird hunting, waterfowl hunting. My dad as well, he was involved, and trapping as well. My dad taught us how to trap. That's kind of what started us into it.
Yeah.
And it grew from there. All of us kind of had our own way of hunting, our own style of hunting.
Yeah.
And we had enough for all of us to do it. And like I said, we're extremely fortunate to have the opportunities and to be able to hunt, the private type stuff that we're hunting.
Yeah. Now, so you shot competitive archery whenever you were younger.
Yeah.
So what styles did you shoot?
So I shot, everything I shot was open class. Of course, I started in the youth class.
Yeah.
And then progressed into the young adult class, and that's when my shoulders kind of went kaput on me. I shot anything from spots, NFA, 100 rounds, indoor, Vegas. Shot Vegas a couple times.
Yeah.
Indoor nationals when it was always in Louisville. Shot indoor nationals.
Yeah. What did you think of the Vegas shoot?
It's legit, man. It's such a different atmosphere.
Did you shoot in the South Point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was still in the South Point.
So they're moving this next year.
Mm-hmm.
They've been there for I don't know how many years now.
It's going to like the Mirage or something like that.
It's downtown. I can't think of. It's like the middle of downtown. Caesar's Palace.
Okay.
I think.
And
Caesar's is
close. Yeah.
Caesar's is like under a bunch of different names and corporations down there. So that'll be where the Vegas shoot will be at next year.
So I shot in the South Point, and I remember, the practice range kind of being set up close to the arena, and like the opportunity to be able to shoot in the arena is kind of intimidating.
It's cool
because a lot of the guys that you see shoot, like
the pros, all of them guys.
Yeah. I was just like any other kid. I grew up watching that stuff on YouTube and kind of aspiring to be those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then to shoot next to them. They always did like a pro-am shoot, like a little side pot type shoot, and you got to hang out with those guys. And there's a few of those guys that I know a little bit better. I grew up shooting with the David Hausers, Chris B. We're all the same age. So I got the opportunity to shoot with a lot of those guys.
Did you go the year? So Chris B. He went pretty far in it one year. Were you there that year?
I don't think so. I was pretty early. So I remember I only shot youth class there, and I'm pretty positive Dylan McGeorge. You know that name? Mm-hmm. So Dylan McGeorge, he shot. He was with Archery Learning Center.
Okay. Is that in Kansas City?
Okay. It's down south.
Okay.
So he shot with Archery Learning Center guys. Chris B did, Colby Hanley did. So I got to shoot with all. I shot with those guys, and that's kind of the friend group we had.
Yeah.
Not just there, but indoor nationals as well. So 5-spot stuff.
Yeah.
It was cool to shoot in those places. It was really awesome to travel because I'm a farm kid, man. Like, we don't get off the farm.
There ain't much around here.
No. So you drive 4 hours one way and go to Kansas City and get on a plane. You drive 4 hours west and you get to Denver and get on a plane.
Yeah.
And that was the option we had.
So tell me about your recurve adventure that you started. So started compound and then you started transitioning over to a recurve. So when did you start doing that?
The fall of 22. I shot the steer back here on the right. At the time, the big steer I've killed, and I shot him with my compound. I shot a lot of deer with my compound. I shot him at 65 yards in my compound.
Wow.
And after I shot him, I called a buddy up and I was like, "Hey, I shot a deer. He's a good deer. Hey, you come help me get him out of the river, And the whole time, I knew he was big. I didn't know he was, that big, but we found him. It was awesome. We took a bunch of pictures. And I had actually got him loaded up, took him back home, and I was caping him out. And I was quartering him up and cleaning him up. And I got to thinking to myself, like, man, I'm almost not, respecting this deer like I should be. And the reason I say that is I didn't get that worked up about it.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happened, I knew I needed to change the style of how I was hunting and what I was hunting with. So I'll be honest with you, 10 days, 2 weeks after I shot that deer, I still had a lot of my old compounds. I still had target bows, At the time, I was shooting a couple different PSE bows.
Yeah.
I was shooting like an Evil 34. I had a couple of Evil
Oh, yeah.
34s that I
Yeah.
built and kind of matched, and for my Western hunts, because I always take a backup bow. I duplicate the bow, I take a backup.
Yeah.
I sold them. Sold every one of them.
Yeah.
I had already, prior to that, I had purchased a Black Widow PMA.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gray bark bow. It's really nice shooting bow, but
that's like the top of recurve bows.
Yeah, man, I've shot a few of them, but I love my Black Widows.
Yeah.
The only problem with the PMA I had is it's pretty tight for my shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, like a long practice session, and it would wear me out.
Yeah.
So I had my PMA, and Black Widow had posted a PSAX ebony wood, and it's a 39-pound bow at 28 draw, and I draw about 30 inch. So I thought, I might be able to get 47, 48 out of it, and I do, but I can shoot that bow so much more consistent, instinctively, just because my shoulders, my body will handle it.
Yeah.
And I can get more quality practice in.
Yeah.
The recurve game is definitely a lot different, but my shot process, the way I talk myself through the shot, it's the same as my compound. It's carbon copy. Obviously, I don't have the range.
Yeah.
And,
you don't.
Man, when you start
yards.
in my style of hunting, I'm a very unconventional whitetail hunter. I don't.
What do you mean by that?
I'm not a tree stand hunter.
Yeah.
I
don't have as many trees out here too.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. So I've got a little different way of hunting whitetails.
Okay.
I've got a little different mindset. I tell everybody, and it's kind of talking big game, but I tell everybody, I'm like, it's just a deer, man. Go hunt him.
Yeah.
Don't overthink it. Go hunt him.
Yeah.
And I've killed. I'm not even making this up. I've got a tree stump in a bedding area.
Mm-hmm.
I've killed 7 or 8 170 plus inch deer off of the same tree stump. And this sounds crazy, but the way I whitetail hunt, I know the deer are there.
Yeah.
I scout them. I know where they live. I know where they drink. I know where they eat. And I keep a bird's eye on them.
Mm-hmm.
I let them grow. And when I decide, that there's a mature deer around in the area, might be bedding in there, I'll wait until they're good and rutted up, and I'll slip in that bedding area with a pair of rattling antlers, and I'll rattle them in. And I went on kind of a hot streak, and you can see it in some of my taxidermy. A lot of frontal shots, because I'm on the ground. I kind of pull some brush around me, or I've even dug into a sandbar and just sat down on the ground. With my compound, that's great, right? Short axle to axle, I can draw off the ground and shoot off the ground.
Yeah.
The recurve changes that a little bit. But when they're good and aggressive, and you kind of crash into their bed, of course with the wind, obviously you're playing the wind hard. Those deer, those big dominant bucks are gonna come see who you are and why you're there. And every single time I've done it, I've seen success in it.
Yeah.
And I've tried to kind of push my buddies or push my brothers to be like, hey, it's just a deer, go hunt him.
Yeah.
Don't overthink it. Chase,
be aggressive.
Be very aggressive,
but
at the same time, have a game plan. Set aside a game plan and play it out in your head and say, you know what? I think if I can get to this next cedar tree, and have the wind cutting through here, the bedding area, and if I can call at that deer and get his attention with the wind in my favor, they're gonna come see you. Mm-hmm. So like I said, there was probably half a dozen deer in a row that, I shot them at steps. I wouldn't even tell you yards, man. They come blowing in on me, and I shoot them in the chest, frontal shot, and it's game over.
Yeah.
They can't stand it, man. They just, when you get into where they live and kind of get under their skin, hunting in that fashion, whitetails can be very fun to hunt off the ground.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna knock tree stand hunting because I've done plenty of that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not my style.
Yeah.
I'd rather be on the ground, be able to move a little bit. Obviously, with a whitetail, you can't much. You're not gonna stand up and walk
Chase
in.
after them,
Right.
Yeah. So this past season, that was your full first year without a compound, though.
Yeah. So fall 22, when I sold all my compounds, and I had the PMA, and then I got the.
Or no, I guess it wasn't. This was it the year before, or was it?
I killed some turkeys and stuff, recurve hunting. Prior to that, and I killed a couple does and another buck prior. But the season of 23 is when I fully converted.
No compound.
No compound at all.
You didn't own one.
I didn't even own one.
Yeah.
And so I started with a turkey in like May of 23.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I want to go hunt a turkey. And
Yeah.
it had actually been like I like taking kids turkey hunting. I like getting them into it because that's how I started, man. I started with hunting turkeys. So I ended up getting one killed with my recurve, and I was like, man, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Like I had so much more fire under me.
Yeah.
After I got it done with that recurve, that it only drove me to want to do it in the big game world too. Yeah. So I ended up. I drew a Colorado elk tag.
Yeah.
And it's a limited unit that I know quite a bit about. I killed a handful of bulls in there already with my compound. And man, I'll be honest with you, friends and family, they're like, "You're crazy if you're only taking a recurve out there. Like, this is a limited unit. You need to take a backup compound." Like my brother even brought his compound along, and he's like, "Dude, if you at any point feel like you can't get it done with the recurve, you need to carry this compound in and get it done."
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it because I know I'm going to be disappointed if I do.
Yeah.
So I that was my main goal, was to kind of hold up my end of the deal in a way, and to get it done with my traditional equipment. And
no other route.
Exactly.
Like you weren't even going to have that option.
I didn't give myself that option. I didn't want to. And then I ended up killing a bull, like 13 yards with it.
So this past September, or
yeah. So it was, I think I killed that bull on the 7th of September.
Okay.
Got it done in Colorado. And I'll tell you this: when you're 5.5 miles in, that recurve's a lot easier to carry because I can break it down and put it in my pack.
That's how far you shot that bull in?
So when we went to the top of that mountain.
Or you were just saying you went in that far?
Yeah. So when we went to the top, I figured out early season, it was still fairly warm. And I've seen snow, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th of September out there in that unit. And we didn't have any cool weather yet. So I kind of set aside the first 10 days of September to go out there in 23. And I had plenty of cows at, 9,000 feet. Couple bulls, nothing that was really talking much. And I believe the 6th of September, I ended up going to the top of this mountain, and it flattens out up top, and clear up tops 98 to 10,000 feet. And that day alone, I saw a dozen different bulls. I found the bulls and decided, I got all the way back to camp and decided that the next day I was going to go up to the top. So my middle brother, he ended up regretting following me up there, but he did. We slept under a rainfly that night in our sleeping bags on top of the mountain.
Yeah. Wow.
And we didn't necessarily call that bull in. we set up our little camp up top and slept that night, got up super early, and we could hear elk talk, probably another couple hundred feet above us in some thick stuff. And we decided to kind of start moving up. We had the thermals in our favor. We started moving up the mountain and actually found a wallow, like a very heavily used wallow. And I turned around and I was actually telling my brother, like, man, maybe we should just set up on this today. And as I'm telling him that, this bull lights up right up above us. And so we got in some cover, kind of got set up, and at that point I'm 10 yards from the wallow.
Yeah.
Like, I was too close to it, to be honest with you. And it wasn't 5 minutes later, we actually had a black bear come in off the top, come all the way into the wallow, drink out of the wallow, and then walk at us. My brother's got his gun drawn.
Yeah.
I didn't have a bear tag, and he did.
Oh, okay.
And as he's coming in, I'm asking my brother, I'm like, man, you want to kill this bear? And he's like, dude, with what? And I'm like, this recurve.
Yeah.
Like, you can shoot it at 10 yards, And he's like, no, I can't. he's like,
I'm not even gonna try.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not even gonna try. No way.
Yeah.
So that bear kind of milled around, and he figured out we were there, and man, he puffed up.
Wow.
He was kind of pissed that we were there.
Yeah. And
he kind of walked stiff-legged, and he's all puffed up, and he got closer to us, and he was probably 5-6 yards from us at the time. Bull lights up again. Bugles right up above us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, they're working. They're gonna come down here. And I think, I don't remember if it was me or my brother, but one of us started laughing because this bear was like in our face, pissed that we're there, right?
How do you laugh at that situation? But also,
dude, I'm shaking like a leaf.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I might have to kill this thing in self-defense.
He's got a pistol, right?
Yeah, he's armed. He's got his gun drawn.
Yeah. And
the bear ends up, I don't know if he winded us. I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
Because, we hiked in. We smelled like a pigsty,
Yeah.
And he ended up peeling off and cutting like straight away from us, away from the elk. And I was like, oh, awesome. Because that, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this bear is going to tear out of here and run right through those elk. And man, it was a matter of a couple minutes. These two bulls worked down, came in, and I get super worked up with elk, man, especially when they're talking.
Yeah.
Like, I can't describe it, and the guys that know, they know. Like, it just gets under your skin, and I've had plenty of whitetails in my face, but to this day, when I've got an elk screaming,
elk does it for you,
dude. It unbelievable.
Yeah.
So this bull comes in, and I had told my brother that night, I said, listen, I'm not gonna hold out. I want to shoot a legal bull with my recurve. So in Colorado, it's got to be at least 4 points on one side or 5-inch brow tine. And this bull comes in, he's legal.
Yeah.
And I knew it. The bull with him was not. Of course, little bull comes in first.
Yeah.
Right in our face. I'm talking 15 yards. And I'm worked up because I'm like, if he sticks around, if he doesn't wind us, doesn't blow out of here, I'm going to have a shot opportunity at this other bull. He ends up working in, comes even closer. And when I've actually got a really neat video. My brother, I didn't know it at the time, was actually videotaping off of his cell phone.
Yeah.
And he was kind of laid back up against a tree, and he had his phone sitting on a log right next to us. And that bull comes in, and he's kind of quartered at me. And I knew I wanted him broadside. Perfectly broadside. I didn't want to risk anything. We're far enough in. And Colorado's like everywhere else. If you draw blood, your tag's filled, you're done. So I wanted the best shot opportunity I could get. And he works in, and I draw. And actually the feathers on my arrow, I shoot feathered arrows out of my recurve. And the feathers, you can actually hear the feathers draw back on my arm. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, that bull picks his head up and looks right at me.
Mm.
And I ended up getting a really good shot on him. And he went maybe 40 yards and piled up. And
you said he was how close to you?
I shot him 12, 13 yards tops. And that's when that's kind of got me hooked on my traditional archery. Man.
Like that. Made everything
it was such
worth
it was I won't call it a relief. It was kind of an overwhelming sense of achievement, in a way. It's probably the smallest bull I've ever killed, and I'm more proud of that bull than anything. Like it was such an awesome feeling. Like, hey, I got it done.
Yeah.
And got back from that trip, and then it was whitetail time again. And
back here in Kansas.
Yeah. So I had a whitetail that I kind of had him pegged. I knew where he was living. I knew where he was feeding. There was some milo actually, about a half mile from the draw that those deer were feeding in.
Yeah.
And I ended up shooting that deer at like 8 yards with that recurve. Yeah. And
wow.
Same deal, man. Like he might have been 100 and upper 160s, maybe low 70s whitetail.
Yeah.
I'm more proud of that whitetail than my bigger ones, to be honest with you. Like it's such a different way of hunting. It's a different style of hunting. In my style of hunting, my aggressive style, trying to calculate all those things and not be overly aggressive with that recurve. I've had to learn a lot.
Yeah.
I've kind of had to relearn how I hunt and how not to hunt.
What you can and can't get away with.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's a lot more margin for error.
Yeah.
If you booger something out, you're not going to have that follow-up shot at 50 yards.
Yeah.
Or I'm not going to.
Yeah. Because
I'm not going to, to me, I could probably take an ethical shot at 40 yards tops. I'm pretty confident out to that. So that changes the way I hunt and how aggressive I be at times. So that's been a trip, trying to relearn and also try to, stay in on the successful side, filling tags, and that's not necessarily what it's about. I'm not going to. I don't want to go out there just to fill a tag.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's such a different ball game.
Yeah.
That it's been an awesome experience to kind of convert to the traditional side.
You told me something earlier about your first whitetail with a compound bow. Mm-hmm. You were 8 years old.
Yep. Yeah. So I was 8.
Do you remember that story? Like.
Oh yeah.
To go into it just a little bit.
So when I started, I think I killed my first deer was actually a mule deer, and that was with a rifle. I was 7. Yeah. I killed that deer with a rifle.
I killed my first deer whenever I was 7 with a 410 slug.
Yeah.
I killed 2 that year.
Yeah.
And then I killed my third one whenever I was 8 with it.
Yeah.
But I remember the story so vividly. Yeah. So that's why, and I don't remember anything else whenever I was 7, 8 years old. Yeah. But I can remember that story.
Oh, it's amazing. Like the things that we remember, my most memorable, achievements or happenings when I was that age, it was hunting.
Yeah.
I don't remember sports. I don't remember what I did in school, grade school. It was from when I was hunting.
That's a big testament to, like, I guess parents now that are raising kids.
Yeah.
You've got one on the way.
Mm-hmm.
I've got one on the way. So, like, for other, like, parents and stuff, I think that's a big testament to like taking them out, or even if you don't know, maybe you got family or start learning yourself.
Yeah.
Because of the memories.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard, like, especially guys our age at this point that have never hunted. I love seeing that group of people get into the sport because they might not necessarily have had the opportunity at the young age like we started. Maybe they weren't introduced to it. But I love kind of seeing that demographic pick it up and run with it.
Yeah.
And they see, why we do it. And I think in our sport, or I'll call it a way
Passion.
of life, or our way of life.
Yeah, seriously.
There's a lot of negative. There's guys that hunt every day that they're some of the most negative people you'll ever talk to, because they don't necessarily respect it fully. They don't know the amplitude of what they're doing as far as conservation goes, or passing it down to the next generation.
Yeah.
They're in it for the now, and they're not necessarily looking to the future.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
I think that's a big key part of what we do as hunters. And that's why it's so important that we kind of come together and keep it, keep our way of life. And
we wouldn't be here today without hunting.
Absolutely.
As far as our ancestors. That's why I love seeing someone comment hate on a post talking about killing or hunting in general, and I don't.
But they can just go to the grocery store and get it off the shelf.
I don't respond to it as much as I used to, but it's just kind of, I laugh at it because like that's exactly how people had to live. Like, years ago was
right.
If they didn't hunt and they weren't surviving.
Yeah, absolutely. That was absolutely a way of life.
Yeah. So
here's something interesting, and this kind of goes back to the Vegas shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this from, I might have been 12, 13, 14 when I shot in Vegas, and there was always a banner at the Vegas shoot, and you'll remember this. It said archery, the sport of man since time began.
Mm.
Think about that.
Yeah.
I remember that to this day. It's important to this day.
Yeah.
Technology's obviously changed. Laws have changed. It's our duty to kind of keep it going, and to keep our sport in a good light as well.
Yeah.
And to also at the same time, having patience for the antis, and to be able to promote it in a way that we might be able to touch some of those people and kind of change their I'm not gonna say poor outlook, but change the mindset that they might have from a negative experience or a negative photo or something they saw on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. The most I see too is with like Africa, and I've read so much about like what all that does for those people over there.
Yeah,
like, that's their revenue.
Yeah.
And that's what feeds them.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I think people going over there and have the money to go do that, I think it's so important.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I've learned about it.
Yeah.
But before, like whenever I was younger, it's like, why?
Right.
Why go shoot that? Why go hunt that? And then you read about like what that does for those tribes over there, those people. It's like, wow, like we're really
and when
helping.
they have the infrastructure that they do have, in certain places, like that is key to their survival in a way. To help out actually people living in a village. That's a key factor in keeping them alive.
Yeah, we chased a long rabbit, but really good rabbit. But so your first deer with a compound.
So I was 8, and at the time, like obviously we're on a farm. My folks didn't necessarily want me on an ATV, 4-wheeler, Polaris Ranger, none of that, right?
Yeah.
So anytime I hunted, I was a scaredy cat. So at the time, I believed a lot in Sasquatch. I can't even make this up. Dude. I'm 8. I'm watching Sasquatch on the TV, right?
The Sasquatch hunters?
Yeah.
Dude. Yes.
Dude, so I was scared to death of walking into my tree stand and him scooping me up and running off with me, right? So anytime I hunted, I walked from the house. So Typically my tree stands are anywhere from a mile and a half from the house.
Yeah.
And I'd leave early in the morning. I'd pack all my stuff up and I'd go to the tree.
Yeah.
And the tree stand that I actually shot my first whitetail out of, the tree has since fallen down. There's still remnants of that old tree stand in that tree.
Yeah.
And one of these days I'm gonna go cut them out just so I have them.
Yeah.
So what I did is I took 2x4s and I put 2 screws in each 2x4 right in the middle, right?
Yeah.
That's safe. My platform was maybe 12 foot off the ground. I go up to the first Y in the tree, 2x4 on each side, plywood on top. And it's standing only. There's no sitting down in that thing.
Yeah.
And I had no business climbing in that tree.
Did you make it?
Mm-hmm.
You put it up there, the platform?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and my brothers and I spent a lot of time in that river.
Yeah.
And that's where we grew up.
Yeah.
And looking back, that's the best thing that ever happened to us. Being connected to the, the river and the wildlife.
Yeah.
But anyway, I ended up, it was like prime rut, right? So I ended up, it was like mid-morning, about the time those bucks start really cruising. Same deal. I rattled, and this deer comes cruising in, and I probably shot him at 10 yards. And at the time, man, I had no idea what that was going to do for me and for my life.
Yeah.
It changed. At the time, I didn't know how much it was going to change me and how much it was going to allow me to grow and our passion in what we do.
Yeah.
I ended up, at the time, I really didn't understand, as far as recovery or any of that. I walked back to the house, and I get there, and they just got done doing chores, and I told my dad, I'm like, hey, I shot a deer with my bow. And he's like, kind of amazed. He's like, okay, well, what?
I would be too.
Yeah, he's like, where is he? And I was like, well, I shot him and I watched him fall, but I hope he's dead.
Yeah.
I didn't understand. I didn't know.
Yeah.
So we ended up going down there. Of course, we drove back to the tree, and the deer went about 40 yards and piled up.
Yeah.
And man, that's what got me hooked.
And that was a mule deer.
This was a whitetail.
No, this is a whitetail.
My first deer with a bow was a whitetail.
Yeah, your rifle the year before was a mule deer. So this was a whitetail. Mm-hmm. 8 years old, and then
yeah. So that's the only deer. So in my back room of my shop, Southwood Armory, I've got one deer at home, and that's the first whitetail I killed with a bow.
Yeah. And why do you keep it there?
So he's about a 150. Like he went like 140. He went like 149 and 4/8 or something like that.
Because you said because you don't want to bring him in here to make these one or to make him.
Make all these look bigger.
Yeah, he's too small for the trophy room.
But
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I got him mounted. He's in the house still.
Yeah.
But that's a special.
Yeah.
That's what got me into this sport. I've kind of run with it since then.
Yeah.
I'm very, very glad I did. Fortunate that I grew up where I did, where it'll actually allow me to, stay connected with it and continue managing it. Not only to help me be successful in the field, but also ensure that that's going to be there for our next generation. That's very important to me. I've got a little girl. She's going to be 2 on the 5th of July, and I've got another one that's due in June. So they'll be about 2 years apart. 2 little girls.
Yeah.
And I look forward so much to be able to take them and hunt the same places I've hunted growing up, and to introduce them into the sport.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I came out here and hunted for my first time in Kansas. I drew a tag. That's how we met.
Yeah.
And it's a whole different world in the Midwest and out east hunting. I mean, it's so different. It's so open. You have to think of different ways. That's why I liked it so much, because I had to think of different ways.
Yep, you got to innovate.
and you have to. It's really fast though. It can be at times, especially since you've only got like a certain number of days. And one thing that was so intimidating to me was like spot and stalk on a whitetail, because for you like that style, you like being on the ground. Me, I'm scared to death of like me like seeing,
it goes back to it's a deer, man. Go hunt it.
I know, but like listen, you see a 170-inch deer and you have to go in there, and if you bust him, you like, that's what's so intimidating, because I'm like, that it's over. But like, for one, you can't have that mindset, is what you talk about.
Yeah.
What are some ways or like things to keep in mind when you're like trying to do a stalk on a deer?
In our part of the world, I always tell people, because they ask me all the time, oh, let me guess, you shot him off a log again, right? You shot him off your stump. Be aggressive, but don't be overly aggressive. I'm a very, very big believer in weather fronts. Obviously, that gets those mature deer that are typically, fully nocturnal deer on their feet. It gets them to food early, or even heat, man. Like out here, when we get so dry, you've got very, very limited water sources. So that's also a good time to hunt a big mature deer. Is to kind of key in on water as well. We get a lot of 105, 110 degree days, and you can be very successful hunting whitetails.
Deer have to
in that heat, absolutely. 90% of the time, they're bedded up, and they're not going to move till midnight. But 10% of the time, they're going. They're on their feet. They're going to water. I key in on standing corn as well, especially irrigated corn. Those deer live in those fields. I mean, they'll live in those fields for days. Especially when our river dries up, we get a lot of ponds that'll dry up as well. When our river dries up, those deer are in the corn, and they're actually watering out the wheel tracks. They've got food, water, bed, everything right there. They don't have to. So that's another interesting way of kind of keying in on those big mature deer. And as far as pressure goes, I stay out of there until I believe it's the right time, and then I'll kind of make a move from there. I really, really, really like to wait, honestly, not necessarily when they're pursuing goes, but that fine line right after lockdown, when those big bucks are kind of cruising for the last hot nose. That's when I like to hunt. That's when those bucks are aggressive. That's when they really respond well to rattling or grunting. I don't grunt really much at all. I rattle a lot. I've got a set of rattling hounds. I got. So I can't cut the brows off these rattling antlers, and I'll tell you why.
They're so large, and it would be a
These sheds belong to that deer right up there in the middle.
Yeah.
On the right, up top.
Yeah.
These are his sheds 2 years before I killed him.
Yeah.
I rattled him in with his own sheds.
Oh, that's dying by the hand. Dying by your own hand.
Yeah, so these sheds, I've rattled at least a dozen mature whitetails in these sheds.
Yeah.
I'm a believer that the bigger the shed, the bigger the deer is going to come in. That's the way I've always thought. So that's when I like to get aggressive. Like I said, they really respond well to the calling.
Yeah.
And that's when you get them in your face and have that opportunity.
So these deer are super aggressive out here, and I learned that not only from some people, locals out here talking about it. I saw a mature buck, and at the base of his head, both sides were broken off.
Oh yeah, buzzed right off. Yeah.
And me and a buddy were out here, and we knew that was a buck. Like the moment before we brought up our binocs.
Yeah.
And we knew he was large and mature. And we saw that deer, we both bring up the binocs, and we're in like just silent.
Yeah.
Because this is November. Like they didn't shed.
Yeah.
But we're like
everything just shaved off.
But we're like, is that a doe? Like
we see that a lot. Like you get into mid-November.
Yeah.
Typically things are busted up.
That's crazy.
Yeah. If they got good mass to them, they'll hang on to everything. But if you have anything at all, drop tines, split brows, maybe something off the front, or a kicker off the side, that stuff's busted off by that time.
Wow.
We see that a lot. And I shot a deer in 2020, I believe. 2 days before I killed that deer, I actually he had a club right next to his head. Nice 5.5. And 2 days before I shot the deer, I had a picture of him with that drop still on. And when I killed him, he already busted it off. And that was the first week in November.
Yeah.
But
that make you sick?
Not bad.
I mean, like.
Yeah, and I'm not that guy that's gonna go get something recreated.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that you shoot a deer that way, that's your deer.
Yeah.
You don't add inches back on. And I've always kind of had that attitude. But
yeah,
that was one of those deer. It crossed my mind, but I couldn't make myself do it.
I would have to do it. I'm gonna be dead honest. If he's got a drop time, I had a buddy. He came and shot a drop tine in Missouri this past season, and I was super stoked for him, but also kind of sad because I want a drop tine deer.
Yeah.
Like that's, I guess since I was a little kid, like that's one thing that I've like if I could like see or shoot a drop tine deer, and I knew about that deer. I saw him the year before, and then I tried to go find him this past summer. I couldn't find him, and then while he was hunting, saw him, then shot him like 2 days later, and I was super stoked just to see it.
Yeah.
Like, cause just to be a part of that.
Right.
So it was really cool. Yeah, I would definitely. Hey, add a couple inches too.
Right. Yeah, make it longer, bigger. We want more mass.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then you started your elk journey. Mm-hmm. How old were you?
So I started hunting elk in 2016.
Okay. Was that the year you graduated?
Yeah, so I graduated
high school,
in 16. The fall of 16 is when I started hunting elk. And like I said earlier, when I graduated high school, I weighed 300 pounds. And the first elk hunt really humbled me. I hunted OTC, Colorado, and borderline killed myself trying to get around. I was overweight. The next year, I actually ended up the craziest thing ever. If you ever heard of Elk Assassins, Trent Penrod actually runs Elk Assassins, and he does some phenomenal giveaways. The guy promotes the sport like nobody I've ever met, and he's just an all-around good dude. So what they did, it was a ticket. He was selling 100 tickets, and you bought a ticket and you got a number. I was number 54. And what they ended up doing, once the tickets were all sold, the idea was he was gonna spin a wheel.
Yeah.
And he was gonna draw a name. And that name was gonna get applied to Arizona. Any tag of your choice, obviously, being a preference point state, it's pretty tough to get a tag in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
So the day came down and I'm like antsy. I'm watching this. I'm like, I got a ticket, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
Spins the wheel and lo and behold, lands on 54, right?
Wow. 1% chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lands on 54 and that was the best thing that ever happened to me. What that did, not only to me as a hunter, but to my health as well. So the following summer, after that giveaway, is when I really got serious about my health, and I decided I needed to lose some weight. And in 4 months, I think that drawing was like March.
Yeah.
In 4 months, I lost 100 pounds.
Wow.
And that was my goal.
Wow.
I wanted to lose weight so I could hunt elk.
Yeah.
I ended up killing a bull with Trent that fall. I actually ended up drawing a late muzzleloader hunt. It was a November hunt, and I ended up killing a bull. That's what kind of catapulted me into the elk world.
Yeah.
Since then, so I've been hunting elk for 7 years. I've killed 6 bulls in the last 7 years. Hunting elk.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, how many of those were with a bow?
All but one. Yeah, I
Yeah.
shot the one in Arizona with a muzzleloader, and then everything else has been archery kill. So, I've been very, very, very fortunate to draw some of the tags I've gotten, like 1 in a million chance type thing, and I've drawn. And I've been able to go hunt some limited areas. I'm not going to sway anybody away from hunting over the counter. I think it's great. And it's those are our public grounds. That's your dirt and that's mine.
Yeah.
So power to anybody that wants to go hunt public ground. All of my elk have been killed on public ground too. So, I feel very, very fortunate to be able to go hunt on our public ground.
Yeah.
And have the opportunities to go out there. I'm at home when I'm hunting elk.
Yeah.
I truly feel that way.
Mm.
I'm not going to take away from whitetails because whitetails are my true passion, but elk changed my life. And not only the way I hunt and the way I look at hunting, but also my health.
Your health.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's amazing, like, testament to what hunting can, like, do for someone.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
as far as, like, respect, your outlook for life, how you view, like, nature and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so that's amazing. So, wow, I'm drawing a blank just listening to. One thing that I wanted to ask you was, like, you watch like draws and stuff like that for points, and that's something that I've been trying to learn. I've got points for some states.
Yeah.
But I've had to like really dive in and research.
Yeah.
So is there any like ways that you, I guess, find it's easier to research, or do you just like call the states? How do you go about that?
I honestly, I've never called the Department of Wildlife in any states. I've never talked to anybody on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
What I like to do is first kind of set my goal. Everybody's goal is to obviously go hunt elk and be successful hunting elk, or just get in the mountains, man. I'm a flatlander and I love the mountains. So if I could go out there and walk through those mountains every year for the rest of my life, that's what I'll do. That's what I'll do. Yeah. It's a rabbit hole when you start looking at draws. Every state's structured a little bit differently.
Yeah.
As far as preference points or lotteries. The best thing I can advise somebody to do is don't be afraid to do more research. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time, very time consuming. There's a lot of forums that I read that I'm like, there's not much information there. Because there's those guys that are like, well, I'm not telling you anything.
Yeah.
Which I don't blame them. They work for those spots, and they put their heart and soul into the spots. The last thing they're going to do is tell you, where they hunt and where they see elk and where they're successful. And I respect that fully. But the absolute best thing you can do, set aside all the apps. There's some great apps out there. Go Hunt is phenomenal.
I've heard heard of them and listened to the
drop
guys.
percentages. You can set your goal into that app, and they can generate your options. So that's a good option as well.
Yeah.
But read as much as you can and absorb everything, and honestly learn the preference point system. Learn those lottery systems and shoot for the moon. I tell people all the time, like, you're not going to draw it if you don't apply.
Yeah.
So you have to apply. It's a lot of work to kind of keep that straight, get applied everywhere you want
Also,
to apply.
you're not in season, so that's the thing that I try to keep account of, because
So everybody does it at a different time as well.
You're applying it like out of season, spring, summertime.
Yeah.
A lot of guys, it's like not really a thought in their mind, like, oh, I need to like pay attention because a draw is coming up. Like
a lot of guys are like, hey, when do I need to apply? And I'm like, dude, that was a month ago.
Yeah, like it gets fall time, and I'm like, man, I wish I had like a tag to go there, or I wish I would have, like, now that I'm all fired up for hunting season, like, oh man, I want to go hunt this species in this state.
Yeah. I've got this saying that if you don't play the game, you're not going to get the ball.
Yeah.
So that's got everything to do with giving you better odds of drawing. You have to do your research. You have to look in, like I said, to the different draw percentages. The likelihood of drawing is getting slimmer, honestly.
Yeah.
A limited unit that I've killed 4 or 5 bulls out of in Colorado. When I first started applying, I could draw that tag every other year. It's a 4-point unit now. So you're talking every 4 years.
Yeah.
It's changing rapidly. There is a lot of there's a lot of other options as well. Like I ran a booth for Zeiss Optics in Denver a couple weeks ago, and I actually ran across a guy. His name's JP, Big Chino Outfitters in Arizona. He's out of Prescott, Arizona. Man, he's got over the counter options in Arizona. It's a depredation type tag. You can hunt those elk the first 3 months of the year, or you can hunt July full velvet bulls over the counter.
Wow.
It's all in how bad you want to hunt.
Yeah.
The timing of that's not ideal. So a lot of times we're harvesting wheat. We're getting farm work done, so I can't get away to do some of that stuff. But in the future, I want to, kind of have that in my back pocket and say, maybe I won't draw this fall, but maybe I could go hunt elk, at a different time of the year as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really awesome. So main thing is, like, just do your research, and if you want it bad enough, I feel like you're probably gonna put in the work and time to go do it.
Absolutely.
I guess that's where I've kind of gotten to. It's like I'm getting to a point where I can set aside time to go and hunt like different states, and I want it bad, like for some of these states.
Absolutely.
And so like I've got 4 points for Iowa, and so next year I'm gonna apply for the tag, and I will hopefully get it. I'm super excited.
Yeah.
I've been waiting 5 years.
Absolutely, yeah. Exactly. Like, I'm 26.
I'm 25.
You're 25.
Yeah.
In the big picture, how many times are you going to be able to hunt the rest of your life at those odds? So if you're not applying, do it.
Yeah, I don't want to wait, I guess, until maybe I'm like, should have applied 7 years earlier. Like, no, I may not be financially like stable at that time. But for buying now like a $25 point, at least I have the ability. Yeah. Or I could wait.
You have the option down the road of saying, hey, I can apply for this tag and more than likely draw it.
The big thing too is that's like, we want to be able to go and hunt there and not push like our odds lower. But those points and stuff, they help out the conservation. They help out like get those deer. Like, hunters are what drives like revenue in protecting and growing populations.
Absolutely, yeah.
So like us hunters, we're the ones that's putting in the money, not the non-hunters, to like keep our population safe, paying the conservation and all of that. Yeah. So that's just something that I wanted to point out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with everything like we've talked about, your memories made, what are some tips, I guess, for, and it may be out west, it may be Midwest, it may be east, but maybe like a tip or two for someone first wanting to get into it. Like, what would you encourage them to do or start?
Man, put every ounce of everything you've got into making yourself sharper. Do the research and get yourself in the position to be able to get the tag. Not necessarily, for a limited tag, but also over the counter type options as well.
Yeah.
And go hunt.
Yeah.
That's our right. Go hunt the public ground that's available to you.
In every state.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Well, I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
We learned a lot and it was really good. So this is Kade Tremblay. He's out here in Kansas killing giant whitetail, going to be successful with elk. But appreciate your time, man.
Thank you.